The flooding in Texas has already turned deadly. I need to start there. A man was killed in San Antonio after police responded to Salado Creek following a report that a man was calling for help and clinging to a tree limb. Officers said that while they were waiting for firefighters to assist with the rescue, they could no longer hear the man. His body was later recovered by firefighters, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. San Antonio, Salado Creek. A man in the water calling for help, clinging to a tree limb, gone before the rescue could reach him. That is what this week's rain has already done in central Texas, and the rain is not finished. Over 9 inches of rain was reported just north of San Antonio due to trailing, slow-moving storms. Other locations have seen nearly half a foot of rain since Sunday. Monday's downpours brought 42 inches of rain to San Antonio, marking the city's third wettest April day on record. 9 inches north of San Antonio. 42 inches in the city itself. The third wettest April day in recorded history for that city. And today, Tuesday, April 28th, more rain is still falling across Texas. More is forecast for Wednesday. And behind this week's rain, a larger and more dangerous moisture event is still building. For the end of the week that forecasters are describing in language I need you to understand before it arrives. The flood threat is increasing from the eastern hill country into south central Texas, including places like Fredericksburg, Llano, Junction, Austin, Bastrop, San Antonio, New Braunfels, Seguin, and surrounding communities. A flash flood warning was already in effect earlier for parts of the San Antonio to New Braunfels corridor. Several spots already picked up 3 to 5 inches of rain, and more heavy rain may redevelop over some of the same areas. This is not about everybody having issues. It is about a focused corridor potentially getting hit again before it has had any time to drain out. Getting hit again before it has had any time to drain out. That is the specific flooding mechanism I have been warning about all week. Saturated ground, elevated rivers, limestone terrain that refuses to absorb rainfall. And now, additional inches falling on top of a landscape that has already received nearly a foot of rain in 48 hours in some locations. Today is Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. A man died in San Antonio yesterday. The flooding threat is still active right now. And the worst chapter of this storm sequence, the one that carries the most alarming historical comparison in American meteorology, has not arrived yet. Let's walk through this carefully. Before I get into what is still coming, I need to give you the full picture of what this week's rain has already produced across Texas, because I think most people, watching from outside the state, don't fully understand the scale of what has been happening here. The part of Texas being watched most closely runs from portions of the eastern hill country into south central Texas. Places like Fredericksburg, Llano, Junction, Austin, Bastrop, San Antonio, New Braunfels, Seguin, and surrounding communities. Not every town in that zone has had problems, but where the heavier bands set up, flooding has developed in a hurry. This corridor, the eastern hill country into San Antonio, is the heart of what meteorologists call Flash Flood Alley. It is the same geography that produced the July 2025 floods that killed 135 people along the Guadalupe River. The ground in this part of Texas is predominantly limestone, covered by a shallow layer of soil, and hill slopes are steep. Consequently, rainwater tends to run off quickly, funneling into rivers during rainstorms. The Guadalupe River and several surrounding rivers in the region have flooded multiple times in recent decades, often with deadly consequences. Limestone bedrock, shallow soil, steep slopes. This geography transforms even moderate rainfall into dangerous flash flooding events. And this week, the rainfall has been anything but moderate. 2 RV parks near the San Gabriel River in Williamson County, Texas, were evacuated because of the threat of flash flooding. Police responded to Salado Creek after getting a report that a man was calling for help and clinging to a tree limb. His body was later recovered by firefighters, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Evacuations. A death on Salado Creek. And these events happened during the preliminary rainfall. The early, less organized rain that preceded the main event still building for later this week. The NWS Fort Worth office confirmed a strong supercell moved through Wise and Parker counties on April 25th, producing 2 tornadoes. One fatality confirmed with the Wise County tornado, and another fatality in Parker County associated with very strong RFD winds, not the tornado itself. And I want to be precise about the Texas death toll because new information has clarified it. 2 deaths in North Texas Saturday, one in Wise County from the tornado, one in Parker County from the rotational downdraft winds associated with the same supercell, the Salado Creek death in San Antonio from flooding on Monday. 3 Texas deaths in 4 days from this outbreak sequence. 3. AccuWeather meteorologist Brandon Buckingham said, "This relentless stretch of severe weather has turned deadly in Texas. A train flipped over on its side in southeast Kansas due to storms. 4-inch hail was reported in Marion, Kansas. Kansas City, Missouri experienced flooding Monday morning. Starting around 6 a.m., the fire department conducted 11 water rescues from vehicles. 11 water rescues from vehicles in Kansas City in a single morning. 11 people who drove into water-covered roads and had to be pulled out by first responders. 11 near tragedies before 7 a.m. And every single one of them represents exactly the scenario that kills people when rescue is not immediately available. A car in moving water on a flooded road, a driver who misjudged the depth, a situation that escalated from drivable to life-threatening in seconds. Turn around. Don't drown. I have said those 4 words in every video this week. Today, they are not a slogan. They are a description of what killed a man in San Antonio yesterday. I covered Monday's Michigan NWS funding probe in my previous video, but today I need to add a dimension to that story that makes it even more directly relevant to Texas and to the flooding emergency that is currently unfolding. The flooding in Texas came amid concerns about staffing levels at the NWS after the Trump administration fired hundreds of meteorologists this year as part of Elon Musk's DOGE cuts. The NWS Austin San Antonio office's warning coordination meteorologist announced in April that he was retiring early due to the funding cuts, leading to speculation that vacancies could have impacted forecasters' response. The NWS Austin San Antonio office, the exact office responsible for issuing flash flood warnings for the Hill Country, the most flash flood-prone region in the United States, the region that experienced 135 deaths in July 2025, the region that is currently under active flash flood warnings right now, lost its warning coordination meteorologist this month due to the funding cuts. He announced early retirement in April, the month that a death occurred on Salado Creek. The flood watch was issued at 1:18 p.m. that predicted up to 7 inches of isolated rainfall early Friday morning in south central Texas during July 2025. By the time the sun rose on the 4th of July, as much as 12 inches had fallen in parts of the region while its residents were asleep. The Guadalupe River at Hunt recorded a 22-foot rise in just 2 hours before the gauge became completely submerged. In July 2025, the NWS issued a flood watch predicting 7 inches. 12 fell. The gap between forecast and reality contributed directly to the death toll, and the office responsible for those forecasts has now lost a key, experienced forecaster to early retirement driven by funding uncertainty. I want to be precise. The NWS Austin San Antonio office was described as operating normally during July 2025, despite the staffing pressures. The current situation may or may not represent a degraded capability. That is still being evaluated. What is confirmed is that the warning coordination meteorologist, the person whose job it is to coordinate warning messaging and ensure communities receive actionable information, is gone. And the flooding emergency is happening right now, today, in the Hill Country in San Antonio. In New Braunfels. This is not politics. This is operational meteorology. Warning coordination meteorologists do not issue radar-derived warnings. That is a different role. But they ensure that the warning communication between the NWS, emergency managers, media, and the public functions effectively. They translate technical forecasts into language that gets people to act. When that role is vacant during an active, deadly flooding emergency, the gap matters. I'm not making accusations. I'm describing what is confirmed and what is at stake. And I'm asking every person watching this video, in Texas, in Michigan, anywhere, to follow this story. Because the quality of the warning system is the quality of the safety net. And right now, that net has holes. Let me bring you fully current on what is happening right now beyond Texas, because today's enhanced risk covers a large portion of the South, and it is not a passive threat. A level 3 of 5 risk of severe thunderstorms is in place Tuesday afternoon and evening for much of Arkansas and parts of southern Missouri, southeastern Oklahoma, northeast Texas, northern Louisiana, and central and northern Mississippi. Multiple rounds of damaging winds, large hail, and a few tornadoes threaten millions Tuesday across a broader zone from the lower Mississippi Valley to the Tennessee Valley. Day 7 of the continuous outbreak. Level 3. Enhanced risk, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, northeast Texas, southeast Oklahoma. And this is not a declining system. It is the continuation of an active pattern that AccuWeather described as a marathon stretch of severe weather, with daily storm chances through at least Tuesday for nearly 24 states. AccuWeather meteorologist Brandon Buckingham said, "This may feel like a marathon stretch of severe weather for many people in the central United States. Some communities are facing the threat of storms daily through early next week. Nearly 24 states from Texas to Minnesota and eastward to Pennsylvania are included in the risk, which includes damaging winds, hail, flooding downpours, and tornadoes through at least Tuesday. 24 states. And behind today, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday all bring additional rounds of the same pattern targeting the same corridor. The NWS Fort Worth office forecast discussion confirms daily chances for showers and storms will continue through the rest of this week, with greatest chances Thursday into Friday. Some storms could become strong on Wednesday, while the threat for heavy rain increases by Friday. I need to talk about that Friday setup directly because it is the most dangerous single day of the rest of this week. and the Texas communities, already reeling from this week's flooding, are squarely in its path. I described the Friday, Texas flooding setup in detail in my previous two videos: the 6,000-mile moisture pipeline from the Marshall Islands, the precipitable water values above 2 inches, the stationary frontal boundary along Interstate 20, the structural similarity to July 2025. Now that we are 3 days closer, the high-resolution models are giving us a sharper picture, and what they are showing has not weakened. In several respects, it has intensified. Forecast guidance suggests another 5 to 3 inches of rain may fall in the heavier bands overnight, with isolated higher totals, up to 5 inches possible, where storms repeat or train over the same areas. The issue is not that everybody gets slammed by one giant shield of heavy rain. The bigger concern is that smaller bands of storms continue to develop and move across areas that are already saturated, especially from the north side of San Antonio up toward New Braunfels and parts of the eastern hill country. Once you have already had several inches of rain, it does not take much more to turn a manageable situation into flooded roads and fast runoff problems. That forecast from Texas Storm Chasers, covering this week's earlier rain event, captures exactly the mechanism that will apply to Friday's setup, except at a dramatically larger scale. The already saturated ground that is a concern tonight is going to be even more saturated by Friday. The rivers that are already elevated from this week's rain will be elevated further. And the Friday event brings a different kind of atmospheric forcing, not just moisture overrunning a boundary, but a Pacific low ejecting east and interacting with the stationary front in the presence of that extraordinary 6,000-mile moisture pipeline that the WPC flagged with precipitable water values above 2 inches. In July 2025, 4 months' worth of rain fell in a matter of hours in the Texas Hill Country. The Guadalupe River rose 22 feet in 2 hours. 6 flash flood emergencies were issued on the same day, and 135 people died, making it the deadliest inland flooding event in the United States since the 1976 Big Thompson River flood, surpassing even Hurricane Helene's inland flooding from 2024. I am not predicting a July 2025 repeat. I want to be explicitly clear about that. The Friday setup is not a confirmed catastrophic event. It is a significant high-end flooding risk with considerable uncertainty still remaining in the exact positioning and intensity of the rainfall. There are scenarios where it underperforms. There are scenarios where it overperforms. What I am saying is this: the ingredients that are assembling for Friday, the anomalous Pacific moisture, the stationary boundary, the already saturated ground, the already elevated rivers, the limestone terrain, are the same category of ingredients that produced July 2025. And the community that produced July 2025, the Kerr County, the Kerrville, the Hunt, the Comfort, the Ingram communities, are currently being rained on again right now before Friday even arrives. The margin for error heading into Friday is razor thin, and everyone in the Hill Country needs to understand that. Let me name specific communities and give specific information, because generalized warnings save fewer lives than specific, actionable guidance. San Antonio. You already had 42 inches Monday, your third wettest April day on record. The Salado Creek has already claimed a life this week. The San Antonio River and its tributaries are running elevated. Any additional rainfall today and Wednesday that falls in the upper watersheds will arrive in the city quickly. Know your flood-prone roads. Know your flood-prone neighborhoods. Do not drive through any water-covered road, regardless of how shallow it appears. New Braunfels and the Guadalupe River corridor. A flash flood warning was already in effect earlier for parts of the San Antonio to New Braunfels corridor. The flood threat is increasing as more heavy rain may redevelop over areas that already picked up 3 to 5 inches. New Braunfels sits on the Guadalupe River, the same river that rose 22 feet in 2 hours at Hunt during July 2025. Your flood risk this week is not abstract. It is historical, documented, and currently active. Monitor the river gauge. Know your elevation. Have a plan to move to higher ground before you need it. Kerrville, Fredericksburg, Comfort, Hunt, Ingram, and Kerr County. These communities are the geographic heart of the July 2025 disaster. They are also, right now, in the active rainfall zone. Every inch of rain falling in the upper Guadalupe watershed this week is running off the limestone directly into the river. I cannot state the Friday flood risk for your specific area with certainty at this range, but I can tell you that the atmospheric setup for Friday is the most concerning I have seen for your region since July 2025. Watch the NWS, Austin, San Antonio forecasts every single day. Do not wait for a flash flood emergency to move. Move when the flood watch is issued, if you are in a low-lying area near any waterway. Austin, the Barton Creek watershed, and Travis County. In July 2025, flooding continued into July 5th with 2 flash flood emergencies issued for areas around Lake Travis, north of Austin. 9 people died in Travis County, 3 in Williamson County. The Sandy Creek neighborhood in northwest Travis County saw devastating damage. Austin has experienced catastrophic flooding multiple times in recent decades. The Barton Creek Greenbelt, the low water crossings on Loop 360, the underpasses on Lamar and South Congress, these are the locations where flash flooding concentrates fastest. Know them. Avoid them when rain is falling. DFW and North Texas. Daily chances for showers and storms continue through the rest of this week for DFW. The threat for heavy rain increases by Friday. The greater DFW area already saw flash flood warnings over the weekend for Fort Worth and Arlington. The Trinity River system and its tributaries absorb the runoff from North Texas, and that system is already running above normal. Flooding in urban areas with poor drainage will be a recurring risk through the end of the week. I want to spend a few minutes on the specific warning types you're going to see issued for Texas this week, because understanding what each one means is directly connected to how quickly you need to act. A flood watch means conditions are favorable for flooding to develop. When a flood watch is issued for your county, especially in the hill country, that is your signal to start monitoring river levels, identify your escape routes, and make sure your plan is in place. A flood watch gives you time to prepare before conditions deteriorate. A flash flood warning means flooding is occurring or imminent. This is not a time to gather belongings or wait for more information. This is a time to move to higher ground immediately. When heavy rain hits the hill country, hundreds of low water crossings become potentially dangerous. Most flood deaths occur in vehicles. Turn around, don't drown when encountering flooded roads. Do not attempt to cross flooded roads in hilly terrain. A flash flood emergency is the NWS's most serious flash flooding designation. It means life-threatening flash flooding is occurring and immediate action is required. Flash flood emergencies are issued using a mixture of rainfall data and on-the-ground reports. The phrase used is, "Someone has told us we need to get people out of here immediately or people are going to die." When you see a flash flood emergency for your county, do not wait. Do not assess. Do not check social media for updates. Move to higher ground immediately and do not drive through any water under any circumstances. And here is the specific thing I need everyone in the hill country to understand about nighttime flooding, because Friday's event may unfold in the early morning hours when most people are asleep, exactly as July 2025 did. Nighttime flooding is a different animal. It is harder to see, easier to underestimate, and more dangerous when people try to drive through water they cannot judge in the dark. Harder to see, easier to underestimate, more dangerous in the dark. Those three qualities of nighttime flooding are responsible for the majority of flood fatalities in the hill country's history. You cannot see the depth of water on a road at 2 a.m. You cannot see the current speed. You cannot see whether the road surface beneath is intact or has been washed away. And the limbic part of your brain, the part that assesses danger, dramatically underestimates flowing water in darkness because it looks passable in headlights until it isn't. If you wake up in the hill country on Friday or Saturday morning to a flash flood warning or emergency for your area, do not get in a car. Do not try to leave if leaving requires crossing any low water crossing or water-covered road. Move vertically if you must. Go upstairs, get on the roof before you try to drive through water in the dark. Today I want to give you the full accounting of what this outbreak sequence has cost, because the numbers have grown significantly since I started covering this event last Thursday. From April 23rd through today, April 28th, 6 days, this outbreak sequence has confirmed the following. 2 deaths in North Texas Saturday from the Runaway Bay, Wise County, Parker County tornado event. 1 from the tornado itself, 1 from extreme RFD winds associated with the same supercell. 1 death in San Antonio Monday from flash flooding on Salado Creek. 1 death in Kent County, Michigan. Monday from a tree fall during wake low wind event. A man who died warning others to run. 28 tornadoes confirmed across the south and central U.S. since Thursday. A train flipped over on its side in southeast Kansas. 4-inch hail reported in Marion, Kansas. 11 water rescues from vehicles in Kansas City on Monday morning alone. 40 homes damaged in Enid by the EF4. 4 deaths. 28 confirmed tornadoes. An EF4 that destroyed 40 homes. A train derailed by hail. 11 vehicle rescues in 1 city in 1 morning. And the outbreak is now entering its 7th day with an enhanced risk still active across the south. AccuWeather described this as a marathon stretch of severe weather. It has been exactly that. And the marathon is not over. The most dangerous chapter for Texas specifically, the Friday flooding setup, is still 3 days away. 4 people dead, and the week isn't done. Here is where things stand Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. A man died on Salado Creek in San Antonio yesterday. Texas has now recorded 3 deaths from this outbreak sequence. San Antonio had its 3rd wettest April day on record Monday, with 9 inches falling just north of the city. Flash flood warnings are active across the hill country right now. 2 RV parks have been evacuated in Williamson County, and the NWS Austin San Antonio office, the office responsible for warning this exact region, lost its warning coordination meteorologist this month to early retirement driven by federal funding cuts. Today's enhanced risk covers Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and northeast Texas, where multiple rounds of severe thunderstorms with large hail, damaging wind, and tornadoes remain possible through tonight. Wednesday brings additional storm chances across Texas and the lower Mississippi Valley. Thursday brings the frontal boundary interaction. And Friday brings the event that is keeping me up at night, the Pacific Low ejecting east, the 6,000-mile Marshall Islands moisture pipeline, the precipitable water values above 2 inches, the already saturated hill country, and the already elevated Guadalupe River. Once you have already had several inches of rain, it does not take much more to turn a manageable situation into flooded roads and fast runoff problems. This is not about everybody having issues. It is about a focused corridor getting hit again before it has had any time to drain out. The corridor has not drained out. The rain is still falling. And more is coming. If you live in the Texas Hill Country, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, New Braunfels, Comfort, Hunt, Ingram, Llano, watch the NWS Austin, Jar, San Antonio forecast discussion every single day through Friday. Know your flood watch. Know your flash flood warning. Know that a flash flood emergency means move now, not in 5 minutes, not after you pack a bag. Now. And if you see water on a road at any point this week, in any Texas community, at any hour of the day or night, turn around. Because the man who called for help on Salado Creek yesterday could not be reached in time. And the water that killed him looked passable until it wasn't. Stay safe. I'll have updates as Friday approaches.